All right, it is time for Author's Note, one of my favorite parts of the day. This next author writes tough, funny heroines and quirky heroes with witty banter all throughout the story. Denise Williams is her name. She's the author of 10 novels, I hear. She joins us today on Author's Note. Welcome.
Good morning.
So I love to talk to authors about kind of the path that they took to become an author. I read in your bio you've always loved to tell stories, but you are also a PhD, no slouch. Talk about kind of your background before this was your main gig.
Sure. I did always love to write. I love stories. I published awful, horrible, angsty poetry as a teenager. But when I got into college and then graduate school, my writing turned to research. So I'm pretty good at writing statistics and books without kissing in them. And then it wasn't until I was a new mom when I felt like I was buried in the responsibilities of parenting, in work, in all of these things I was doing for others. And I just wanted to return to that moment of doing something for me and my creativity. And that's how I started writing fiction. And so one night when my newborn son went to bed and I was blessed with a good sleeper, I sat down to write, and I thought it would be a short story, and it felt so wonderful. My cup was full and I just felt energized, and I kept writing and I kept writing and I kept writing, and that book in earnest actually turned into my debut novel. So I fell into writing fiction a little bit backwards, and I really haven't looked back yet, and now the redo list is my number 11 book. So it's been quite a wild ride since that started in 2016, 2017.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a short amount of time for all of that to happen. So we look at your books and we see a lot of humor and wit along with the romance, but funny can be one of the hardest things to write. Talk about how you create scenes with comedy in mind when you're crafting your stories.
Comedy is hard to write, and especially my son, who is now 9, tells me all the time that I am not funny. So I think part of it is having confidence in your own humor. But I really think that humor is a balance to so many things and a balm to so many things. And so for my characters, I always think about maybe not even how can they tell a joke, but how can the other person they're falling in love with make them laugh at a time when they need that. And then it's so many rounds of editing to make sure that what I think is funny, other people think is funny. But I love writing characters who can find humor in the world around them, and particularly who their partner can make them laugh. Because if you have a partner who can make you laugh, that's just one of the A+, top tier, chef's kiss things in a relationship, in my personal opinion.
I would completely agree. I make my husband laugh. He's not very funny, though. Anyway. So you have, you said 11. This is your 11th coming up. So talk, though, a lot of times we'll tell our viewers, where would we start so that we kind of sort of enter your world in a way that says, oh, I love this one and let me keep going. So what would be your suggestion for us to start with the Denise Williams book?
Yeah, when I'm asked this question, I always ask folks what they like to read, because my first 2 novels, How to Fail at Flirting and The Fastest Way to Fall, are funny and the banter and strong women, but they have a little bit heavier themes looking around an abusive relationship and body positivity. And so if folks like that, if they want that heavier emotional beat, start there. Those are my first 2 books, and you'll get the full spread. If you want to just laugh and have something a little more lighthearted, I wrote 3 novellas that all take place in and around an airport, and they're compiled in Love and Other Flight Delays. And those are fluffy. You're probably not going to cry. You're going to laugh a lot and have a really sweet romance, and those are great vacation reads. And then the redo list, which just came out a couple weeks ago, is a really good balance of all of those themes, I think. So start anywhere. All of mine are interconnected standalone, so you can start at any point and catch up.
But
I do think I've really tried to curate a balance of heavier, lighter, and then kind of varying degrees of heat and spice along the way too.
So let's get into the redo list. What's the premise of the redo list?
The redo list really asks the question, what would you do with a second chance at your first time? And so the main character, Willow, the heroine, has been in a long-term relationship, and it ends suddenly and unexpectedly. And she's found in this position of needing to start over, to reestablish herself and figure out what's next when the life she thought she would have is no longer an option.
I love
And
that.
her brother's best friend helps her out while her brother is deployed, and he helps her to engage in this effort to redo all of her firsts that were all tied to her ex.
Wonderful.
And so she has this wonderful
like
growth opportunity as she's falling in love with this man as he's helping her. But she's also figuring out, which many of us I think have had to do, where do you go next when you have to start over?
That's I love it. Good hook. We're out of time, but I want to tell y'all, Denise has an Instagram. Nick Will writes. It's always good to follow these authors we introduce you to on Instagram or Facebook, because that's the best way to stay updated with the coolest stuff that she's doing. Thank you so much for joining us on Author's Note.